Okay.
Tom.
Everybody seated?
I wish.
All right, agenda item.
Number 9.
Thank you. No. It's number 9?
Yeah.
Special events.
Special events.
Special events, got it. I still have the old, I'm sorry, I've got to get back to the right ones. All right. Special events, discussion and possible approval of ordinance 5-2018 regarding special events.
So this is a proposed ordinance.
I can turn this on and have feedback. I guess the board have been working on this for a while, and it is to require permits for special events within the township. So, for example, 5K races. Oftentimes that requires input from the Public Works Department, from the Fire Marshal, from the Police Department, and the township oftentimes doesn't get reimbursed for the expenses in its efforts to help coordinate some of these special events. So this ordinance would create a new chapter in the West Goshen Code. It would be titled Chapter 82. It would add regulations for special events on public and private property. It would require permits for these special events and impose certain fees, mainly to reimburse the township for any costs that it incurs in its involvement in these special events. The term special event is a defined term within the ordinance, and there are certain exceptions. For example, a wedding, funerals, those are not things that would require special event permits for, but things like, excuse me? Oh, did you say something? No. So special event is temporary pre-planned assemblage, meeting, gathering, parade, an athletic event, a street fair, an art and craft show, a carnival, a race, with or without admission fee, whose estimated total attendance of all participants is anticipated to total 75 or more people, and it must occur on public or township property, streets, sidewalks, alleys, or other streets right of way that would or have the reasonable likelihood to obstruct, delay, or interfere with the normal flow of pedestrian and or vehicular traffic. It would include product releases, media productions, indoor and outdoor concerts, displays, fairs, and athletic events occurring on public or private property, which are designed to have the potential of attracting large crowds or gatherings. So that's the definition of a special event. It does require a permit. As I said, the exceptions would be for funeral processions, protected First Amendment activities. So, for example, one of the things we had to be careful of is if somebody wanted to have a spontaneous demonstration as a result of something that occurred within the public or within the news, we couldn't prohibit that First Amendment activity from occurring. We couldn't say, sorry, you have to have a permit to do that. Another exception would be events sponsored by the township, activities of governmental agencies. The ordinance is very detailed as far as what the permit application has to include, what information has to be provided to the township so the township understands what efforts it may have to close streets, to provide for cleanup, that kind of thing. And then obviously any of the expenses that would be incurred by the township is something that the applicant or the permittee would have to be willing to pay for. Bill, I don't know, Amy, you were involved in the drafting of this, so if you want to jump in and give some more insight.
Yes, I mean, one of the main purposes behind this ordinance was the fact that we had businesses that were continually doing special events that we were actually receiving complaints about. We had outside entities in other townships that were holding special events outside of our township, but closing roads within our township and not notifying our residents until like the day beforehand. So this addresses that. One of the other concerns, when we talk about weddings and funerals, those exclusions are at those specifically zoned facilities. If you were to have a wedding at your home, then you would have to comply with our regulations. Another thing, with the way the world has become today, this also allows us to get insurances so that if something were to happen, we have insurance. We will have food vendors who will have to provide us certificates from the health department saying that they are licensed through the health department because we actually had an event just recently where we were notified by the health department that vendors were not listed or licensed with them. But right now, we don't have the teeth. We have a special events permit, but no real ordinance to back that up. So this gives us teeth, and it gives us the ability to do some more regulation.
I have a special situation, and I have in North Hill. As you know, we have North Hill Civic Association, and we have events at the lake on a regular basis for our members.
Correct.
How would that affect us?
So they were just, the gentleman from North Hills was just in the other day to talk to me about their annual thing. Basically, under this new ordinance, we require a certificate of insurance, and we're to be named. And actually, Casey and I attended
If the event is on North Hills property, it's not on North Hills property, is that I don't understand, Bill.
For a community event, the event sponsor would need to provide us a certificate of insurance naming the township as a holder. For the civil thing, Casey and I attended a training at PSATS, and they actually specifically said that be sure when you do special events that the township is named as a certificate holder for the insurance. The world's a crazy place now. People do crazy things. And this was one of the things that helped us to try and curtail some of those.
I don't read it that way though, because special event, the way, and that's why I read the definition, the activity has to occur on a public and or township property, streets, sidewalks, alleys, or other street right of way. Now, if your event is happening at the lake on property owned by the North Hills Association and you're not on a township street, then I don't think it meets the definition of special event. Assembly is a temporary an assembly is another defined term which is subsumed within the definition of special event. So an assembly is a type of special event. Assembly is temporary pre-planned gathering, meeting, or rally with or without admission fee which interferes with the movement of vehicular or pedestrian traffic on any street or sidewalk or other public or private property. I guess that would be private property, but is your event interfering with movement of vehicular or pedestrian traffic? I guess it could be. So I guess it would be.
Most of the condos, not condos, associations, most of the HOAs that we have block parties for actually literally shut the street and they get barricades from us. I actually just had a permit handed in today that they need 10 barricades. I'll be handing that over to you, Dave.
Yeah, we don't have that situation.
So as long as your association doesn't meet the scope of the ordinance, then it would be exempt.
Thanks.
We want to be clear about that though, on whether that type of event, we may want to understand what the board's, majority of the board wants to see happen. In a situation where if you're not interfering with any public land or public street, is it something that you want to require a permit for? Because right now, I do agree, Bill, after reading the definition of assembly, it would be if it's happening on private property, but it
interferes with vehicles or pedestrians.
Right, but so on that private property, I think that's a little bit confusing in terms of the definition of assembly. So I would want input to say, if the board thinks that should only be applying to things that are happening or interfering with public property or public roads, I think we need to just make that more clear in the definition of assembly.
One of my concerns would be that we do something with the commercial aspect, the commercial and industrial zones, because some of the special events are actually taking place in corporate parks, and they're doing runs around the building. So that wouldn't be on a public roadway, but it would be on private property. So I guess we would just need, if we're going to narrow that definition down so that we can include those within corporate parks or commercial or industrial zoning districts. Maybe you exclude within residential zoning districts.
But what about the situation you mentioned earlier? So weddings on private property, it's all in the backyard. Where's the interference there? There's an assembly on private land, there's no interference with the road.
Unless you have hundreds of cars parked on it.
Correct. That's where the problem becomes there, because they need planning to where they're gonna park these vehicles and how they're gonna get their people in and out.
So just to take this a little bit further, high school graduations are starting this month. And plenty of streets have 200 or 300 cars up at times because people coming and going and leaving. So would we have to require a homeowner, because of the impact to the neighborhood streets, which would be very annoying to all their other neighbors, to have a permit, and whether or not that would preclude them from having these parties if they have to? Is there a fee associated with it? There is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the definition of I think the definition of assembly would include a graduation party. It's a temporary pre-planned gathering without an admission fee, which could potentially interfere with the movement of vehicular or pedestrian traffic on the streets.
So they would probably.
But I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, at what point do you draw the line? So that's where I'm saying I think that you may want to talk about the definition of assembly a little bit in more detail. And I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't be done. I'm just suggesting that I want to make sure it's very clear to everybody what we are requiring the permits for and what we're not.
Do we want to open it up? Do we have a motion to either approve or disapprove or table? Not yet. Okay. Should we go ahead and do that?
Well, if I may, I think we're most approved just to follow up on Kristen's advice about making it clear about the definition of assembly.
Yeah, I just need input from the board though. For example, what Bill is saying about in a commercial park having a race, is that something the board feels that you need to regulate? What is the impact upon the public for that, Bill, in terms of what's your concern with that?
So one of the locations that we've had these events, we received complaints from one of the tenants within that same business park. We have received complaints in the past, to the point where they even said that they were tailgating in the parking lot of this facility and had the police on their way. And it was tested, and I went out and found that they actually weren't tailgating in the parking lot. But that it was somewhat complaint based. So there is some interference, because when they do those races, they are actually blocking some of the ingress for that area.
And then, so I understand that, but in terms of private parties on people's property, is it something that you would like to see regulated if it gets beyond a certain number? So, for example, I don't know if people read the newspaper, but in Pocopson Township, where this was recently an issue, there was Bam Majeras had a big, huge party, and there was no permits in place, and it caused a lot of problems to the township, and they quickly rushed to put an ordinance in place. And then there was a lot of backlash, because people, again, saying, look, I'm respectful to my neighbors, I make plans myself to make sure that I'm not interfering with my neighbors. Don't make me go and spend money to get a permit from you to have a private party. So it's a balancing act of trying to figure out what's the, when do you want to draw the line as far as when is a permit required. So I don't think there's ever going to be a 100% perfect solution, but again, you're trying to come up with something that's a balancing between allowing people to use their private property in a manner that doesn't harm the public, or that to the extent they're going to require public participation with the police, the public works, or whatever, they're doing proper planning. So,
Was there any sample, or were there sample special event ordinances available for us to review, or?
we did. We looked at many.
Right, okay.
We looked at many. It's really
We
just
came back from PSATs, if there's anything.
They did not provide any samples of PSATs, but what I did was when I put this ordinance together, I actually incorporated ordinances from several other municipalities, because we had actually we had talked about this in our zoning officers association last year, and that's when I brought to you guys the attention of the board last year that we were going to work on something like this, because we were having some issues. And just to get back to graduation parties, since the 5 years I've been here, I've only had one person apply for a graduation party, And that person that applied, I think they only applied because their neighbors constantly harassing them with complaints to us. So I think they did that to cover their bases. But in the years I've been here, I've never had any, we've only had one application for a graduation party. Most of the special events have been the HOA associations doing block parties and these 5K runs. But those, and the other essence of this ordinance was the fact that if we had someone who wanted to come do a movie shoot in the municipality, we had no ordinance in place to cover it. Now, they would have to obtain a special events permit from us to be able to do production. QVC has used various locations in the township and have never had to obtain any permits. This way, we're covered.
Okay, so we should all do a deeper dive into the ordinance as drafted, identify any issues that we might have or might recommend for changes, and get that back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest concern is just making sure you're comfortable with the definition of assembly and special event. And those are on pages 2 and 3. I think the rest of it is pretty straightforward and makes a lot of sense as far as, the administration and what needs to happen on the application, what departments within your township need to be notified and give input on. I think all that's pretty good. I think it's really just, as a policy decision, making sure you're comfortable with the way we've defined special event and assembly, because assembly is one subset of special event. So that would be where I'd focus your attention, and if you could give your comments back individually to Bill and myself, we can make sure that the way it's worded now is consistent with the majority of what the board wants.
Okay. So no motion and no vote. Just do homework. Sounds good. All right then. Oh, sure. Marge, come on up.
Thank you. I hope that you will also address under assembly. It's my opinion, I don't think you should exempt Greystone Manor. Why would we exempt a private, I don't know whether it's a commercial property or a residence, because residents do live there. Now they do hold weddings, but I understand neighbors in North Penn have had complaints about noise. So they hold weddings, but complaints end up being made because of music into the wee hours of the night. And I think we need to be able to regulate that. So I would like to see that parentheses such as Greystone Manor not be included in the ordinance. Thank you.
Greystone Manor was just an example. It's what it is exempting is commercial businesses whose they are zoned for, and the sole purpose for their existence is to serve as a commercial enterprise that offers venue services. So if Greystone Manor was the wrong example, it would be, for example, any place that they're in operation to serve as an event venue. That's their commercial purpose. I'm not sure you want to have them, that's their business. I don't know, for them to conduct a business for every time they host a wedding, that seems that doesn't seem what the intent of this ordinance was for.
And the ordinance does address noise. I mean, regardless, you have to stay within our noise regulations. And the police carry sound meters on the weekends in their patrol cars. And they've all been shown how to use those. So if there are noise violations, it can be addressed immediately.
Yeah, I just would hope that you would leave except for Greystone Manor out of there, because that sounds like they're exempt from everything then, and I don't think they should be, especially when they're going to be surrounded by so many homes in such close proximity. I think there'll be issues, so thank you.
The problem with that would be we would be walking ourselves into being sued.
Mr. Gallagher, from the board.
I'm also a member of the Caswell and Civic Association, and we're about this big. Okay, we have 121 homes, and with every year I get the permit for block parties. Now I understand there's going to be a fee now. Is that correct? Which there never was before. Secondly, the insurance is going to be an issue for us, because we're so small. Sometimes we only have 40 people at the block party, sometimes we have 70. So I was wondering if the township, like we do, if we have a wedding at our house, I can call my insurance company and get an endorsement, and the solicitor probably knows more about this than I do. Get an endorsement, pay a small fee, and I will be covered just for that event for that day. I was wondering if the township would consider, for organizations as small as us, if we could do an endorsement under the township insurance, where we would pay maybe a fee, because the amount of money we would pay for this event would probably shut the event down. That's one thing. And the other thing I would want to point out is the only thing you didn't mention was community yard sales, but I'm assuming that would be covered under traffic obstruction. I just wanted to make sure if I go back to my organization. In other words, we have community yard sales. Basically, it's on private property, but there's a slew of cars in there. So I don't know how that's going to affect the situation. So you might want to consider that, either waiver it or something.
Okay.
Just a thought. I know if you do this and require us to get our own insurance, we probably won't be an association anymore. And to me, that's a diminishment in quality of life for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm sorry, can I see the gentleman? Are you also? Okay, then John, come up. John Hellman.
Just a quick question, clarification, not having read the ordinance that's being proposed here. Suppose I wanted to do a family reunion and I wanted to use the Cooper Smith Park or the West Goshen Community Park. What then would this mean differently from what has been done in the past? Would this, and this is my concern, would this ordinance create an ordinance responsibility or regulation upon residents of the township utilizing facilities that we have built here over the years using our taxpayer money?
There's already a picnic permit.
Good evening, I'm Dale Bonsall, Westchester University's professor in Department of Kinesiology, retired. You all grew up, I heard 3 people come up here and talk about their youth. We have a little 3 houses blocked off, but we're using the street. You can't have a blanket situation for something like that, as was described. We all have passions in life. And boy, did I hear a lot of people coming up here and talking passion. Where would you be if you weren't here? That's your passion. We have the Caswallen Civic Association. Our property barriers, what's that demolition thing that's happened in my backyard. Today was the first time that my house shook. There's something that's doing the impound. It's not a steamroller, but I'm telling you, you're going to hear from that. It's coming down. These 2 colleagues of mine live on the same street. It's at my house, and it's coming down their way. So whatever they're doing to pack it, that beats even the dynamite that went off just a while ago. This particular gentleman that spoke before me, Vince Gallagher, he was past president of the Civic Association. He brings 50, 40 youngsters, they play on my lawn, but they get in the street. We sit out there and we share. Sound mind and a sound body is what the Greeks said. We bring our community together and we try it. We try like everyone else. Do you remember when you were young, the grandfathers and the fathers? You didn't have insurance. That's not the answer. The answer is for this man to go to the development that they filled out and to see if they're serving alcohol. It's a lot bigger than what you people said, cover it with a blanket. Can't do it. It won't happen. Jeez. He fills out every year shows up, we block off the 3 houses, it's a cul-de-sac. Dr. White, his father, made sure that that street that he lived on would not have a lot of traffic. We don't have any traffic except the garage sales that Mr. Gallagher just mentioned. Hang in there.
Another minute.
So I'm just asking you, would you please table the motion? Thank you.
There was no motion.
There was no
So we
motion.
decided we're going to take it back for some revisions and another look-see.
Okay, I just one more question.
Okay.
We're planning to have our block party on May the 19th. You think we'll be able to squeeze that in before the ordinance? Well, let's go home. I have to go to work.
Okay, it's 9:30, so could you make it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it.
We're ready to move on for a couple other.
Did the board ever take a vote to move forward and have this ordinance advertised? I think we're missing a skip or a step in a lot of these ordinances.
We've discussed this several times at public.
We discussed it, but the board needs to vote to approve an ordinance to be, no?
That's not required by law, no. I mean, that's,
What most.
no, every
times.
municipality does it differently. That's not a step.
And with all
It's not done without consultation, and from what I understand, it's been discussed that since I've been here at 2 meetings, and prior to that, in the past years, it have been discussed.
But I don't recall, I could be wrong, I don't recall the board ever directing staff to move forward with this ordinance. This was a directive from our zoning officer to the board that this was a policy that he wanted to see. And I think the board is the policy maker of the township. And I would just like for you all to keep that in mind. These are your policies.
And this,
Not-
that's why it's being tabled, because we needed their input on it, so I think they understand that.
Okay, we're going to move on to.
There's a question.
Mr. Page?
I'll be as quick as possible.
Thank you.
So one consideration that the board needs to take into account is it is next to impossible for individuals to get this type of insurance. Over the past 5 years, I have attempted to do this, and unless you're a .org or some type of corporation, these insurance carriers will not want to deal with you. They will not want to write simple policies for one-time use type things. So to require insurance, even to name the township on that policy, these carriers will not write those policies for us. So take it from me, for 5 years I've tried numerous times to get individual policies, and these carriers will not cover us.
Thank you.
Real quick. Foster Berry, I think you're creating an ambiguity and you're creating a hardship in a situation. If it's not broken, don't fix it. With respect to private property, you have no business telling them what to hold, what not to hold. If the police department shows up and try to enforce an ordinance or a law that doesn't exist, and that can be challenged in a court of law, and I don't have any high opinion of your police department, I've seen them in action, and you're creating more problem for them, no disrespect. But you're creating a problem for these guys. And also with respect to insurance, naming a township as a policyholder, nearly impossible. So you're creating a situation that doesn't need to be created. If there's a problem, police department shows up, hey, park your car. That would solve that problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, moving on now to item number 10, discussion and possible approval of resolution 10-2019, a joint resolution with East Goshen Township to authorize application to PennDOT for a highway occupancy permit for the Blue Road restriping project.
As discussed at last month's meeting, we received a letter from East Goshen Township wanting West Goshen Township to restart the discussion of the restriping plan for Boot Road and the upgrade of the traffic signal at Greenhill Road. And the board authorized to start the process. This is the first step in the process. PennDOT, as it is two PennDOT roads, Boot Road and Green Hill Road are PennDOT roads. They require a highway occupancy permit process to start. The initial part is to approve a resolution by the board. I believe East Goshen has done so already.
If not, they had a meeting this evening. So
Oh yeah, that's right, they match our meeting. So we've been requested by East Goshen to jointly look at Boot Road again for restriping, in a nutshell.
I would like to make a motion that we proceed with that.
Second.
How did that go before?
Not well.
And the main complaint last time was the plan that was produced eliminated the shoulder for most of the residents on our side. And the new proposal keeps that entire shoulder in place, so we no change to the residents on our side.
But when I looked at it, Casey, I thought that the proposal was to basically get rid of the middle lane.
No, the middle lane
The
stays.
turn lane will stay.
Correct.
To get into that driveway.
Correct.
So what's
Where's the change then?
The travel lanes are reduced in width down to Mr. Craig Warren. Okay, here we go. Reduced travel lane widths, which produce traffic calming, because they're very wide right now. They're 12 feet wide, which is much more than normal. 10 feet, so they're down to 10 feet, which maintains that shoulder on the south side.
The shoulder on the north side is used.
Correct, correct.
So between
And there are no residents on the north side.
trimming the lane, you still keep that middle.
Correct, correct.
That sounds a lot better than the previous one.
It does.
Well, I'll second that motion.
Any questions from supervisors?
I was just wondering if the decreased width is PennDOT regulation, correct?
Correct. And PennDOT, again, this HOP process, we have to have community meetings with everyone. With PennDOT, PennDOT has approved the previous two iterations of the plan. And in informal discussions with PennDOT, they're still supportive of the restriping plan. And this does not authorize to go restripe the road today. We have to go through the entire process, public notification, public meetings, all things. It takes several months.
If you'd like to come up to the podium and give us your name and address, thank you.
Joan Herman. Does this include the intersection of Boot and Green Hill making a left-hand turn
Yes.
signal if this is
Correct.
done?
Just some history, we lost that signal upgrade when the Traditions development went away because of the Sunoco project, and they bought the property. The Traditions developer was gonna fully improve that intersection, because we all know that left turns north and south on Green Hill are impossible. So this entire plan will add there are left turn lanes there, as you know. This will add left turn arrows
That's what I meant,
to
sorry.
provide southbound and northbound left turn movements to ease traffic through there, absolutely. But we cannot do that without the striping plan. PennDOT refused last time to allow us to do that signal change without the Boot Road restriping. So it's both or nothing at this time.
Casey, I remember last time it was one of the area Chamber of Commerce or the group of.
Excuse me, I need to call you out. He's still.
Oh, I apologize.
So just if we're successful, cost sharing, has there been any discussion about who's going to be paying for this?
There has.
The resolution says that the boards of East Goshen and West Goshen will equally split all costs for the project.
Right, and that could include approaching QVC, UPS, at least on our side. Obviously, the East Goshen side, it's the church and Hershey's Mill, but there's no frontage on Hershey's Mill, so. But on our side, we could seek funding from our commercial neighbors inside the park, absolutely.
I mean, that's a lot of traffic that they're responsible for through that neighborhood. So I think it would be only fair to try to reach out to them.
Yes.
Share some of this cost. In fact, they were the ones that tried to initiate this before.
Correct.
Nowhere near as what they're.
Yeah, and again, that's all part of the HOP process. Anybody affected, including our residents and our businesses, will have a seat at the table to talk about this.
Thank you.
Again, my name's Leo Sinclair. I live in East Goshen. And to me, yes, thank you. This brings back memories. I was there the first time this go around. And I remember being in East Goshen and hearing all of this information come through. So what did I do? I went home, I called up UPS, I called up the Postal Service, I called up QVC, I talked to the church, I'm a senior, who's now passed away, and every one of them said, please don't let them do this. And I was shocked. Because you got UPS lining up their trucks, and they're like, we never asked for this. Yeah, we have a problem getting our trucks out. Now, as an old investigator doing traffic investigation accidents, I'll tell you right now, you put 2 lanes on that road right there, and you're inviting drag racing. I don't care what you say, it will happen, okay? People will drag race up and down that road there. It's a danger. And you're going to shorten the width of the road? I've seen a lot of cars get clipped, especially when they're racing, and they get very messy, okay? I remember when Monsignor and I talked about this. He said, please don't let them do this because our parishioners will have a hard time getting out on Sunday mornings. Now, I assume that they will probably make some sort of arrangement. Police probably be there, money spent, to allow the cars to come out on Sundays. Maybe you put a light there, maybe. I don't know. But as a resident there, I will start lining people up to fight this one all over again because this is one thing I'm very adamant about. I say, please, don't do this. We live in Chester County. We don't live in Delaware County. We don't live in Philadelphia. If you want to see what roads do to a community, go visit McDade Boulevard. Go down to Roosevelt Boulevard in Philadelphia. Those roads ruin those communities. Doing that to this road will ruin this community. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Sinclair, I met with QVC 2 weeks ago, and
yes,
they're 100% supportive. I met with UPS a month ago, and they are 100% supportive.
Now, when this first came up,
the school, the East Goshen Township, installed a left turn arrow, so they would use the correct front entrance of their lot instead of using the...
Fine. I don't. Let me just cut you off because I'm running out of time apparently.
Sure.
I hear what you're saying about that. Most of those individuals are outside of our community. That QVC employees don't live here. We live here. I'll tell you one thing.
Don't say that.
No. I'm saying.
Don't generalize. I mean, we have QVC employees who live here.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Along the borders.
Oh.
Well, I'm sorry. 30 seconds. Okay, here we go. Here's my opinion about this. Okay, we've seen they've done the Route 3, the timing of the lights. I don't know whether you guys have noticed this. I've talked to many residents. They are concerned. The timing of the light has pushed the traffic through our community fast. The problem is we who live here are sitting on the side roads waiting for the lights to change. I've seen accidents happen on Stroudsburg Road and 52 because of this very incident. People are becoming impatient. They don't want to sit at the light too long, so they inch out and they get clipped. And more accidents have been occurring now at that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan Herman. When the new development comes, Greystone, is that the name? It's going to bring in a lot more traffic, which is going to all come down to Boot and Green Hill. I'm not saying that the houses that are on Boot Road, I don't know what the plan is, will affect them, but with more traffic coming through, I really do think we need a left turn signal there at Boot and Green Hill. So I think in the process of thinking of everything, keep what's coming our way, because with all those homes that are going there, more people are moving in, is really going to jam up there. I don't know what the solution is for Boot Road, what he's talking about, drag racing or whatever, but that has to be put into the picture too with that new development starting. That's what I feel. Thank you.
Tom? Come on up.
This is the 4th time in 11 years that this topic has come up, and nothing has changed. The roadway is not wide enough to accommodate restriping. We've been through this. To do a traffic light change, a left turn, we have to do a traffic study. That's been made clear to the community when it's been asked before by Mr. Craig. You're saying that you've spoken to PennDOT and they're okay with this. I just spoke to PennDOT last week about this and had 2 individuals on the phone with me saying, first of all, though that roadway has a soft shoulder before the curb.
No, it's full depth paving that we've had a
According to PennDOT,
we've had a
that is a soft shoulder. Also, the infrastructure underneath of there needs to be moved. They will not allow those semi-trucks to run over top of that material. It will destroy the roadway. PennDOT's made it clear, nothing can happen that will jeopardize the safety of those community and those people that live along. They will not approve anything. So instead of voting to move forward with the restriping, I think it's time that we have the initial sit down with the community first, and to have PennDOT officials in the room, because apparently there's a discrepancy in what's being said to me in the community as somebody who lives there and knows what questions to ask of them, and then you as the township official, what they're discussing with you. My understanding is that the roadway is not wide enough. The minimum road lane is 11 feet, not 10, and that the subsurface at the shoulder is too soft, and that those trucks will destroy what's there. So now we're talking about a major infrastructure project. If we're only talking about the East Goshen side, they'll have to move that curb stop. They'll have to reorganize what's under the road. And then God forbid we have to go and do eminent domain on the West Goshen side, because my understanding is there's a joint resolution right now that was done in 1992 or thereabouts between West and East Goshen that allows for individuals on the board to make this determination with regards to eminent domain. And my understanding is that that's still in effect. So if that's the case, then I, as a resident and homeowner on that strip, along with my neighbors, we're very concerned about that probability. We're already under the gun with regards to this pipeline project and taking of our properties and our good health. This has been brought up many times. We are talking about 30 seconds. We are talking about a 2 to 3 minute difference in time. I've driven through there. 2 to 3 minutes is what it takes during rush hour. I don't care which direction you're coming. Boot Road, Airport Road, 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. So a lot to consider.
One of the questions I have is, what is the cost to the township for a highway occupancy permit?
just engineering time to create it, to draft it.
You have like a rough estimate government on that?
$1,000 maybe.
But it concerns me that, I don't want to get into this and then find out that it's not feasible. Is there any way that we could ascertain for sure that PennDOT would be at least willing to look at this without kicking it to the curb, some of these things that were brought up?
Sure, we can postpone this till May 30 if you want. I'll get a letter from PennDOT.
I think it might be wise before we go through the motions on this. Just remember, Mr. Casey, you refreshed my memory on this when we were talking about this. Ed, I know you and I had concerns about this before. Our main concern was our residents and taking property away at that time, and that's why we voted against it. Since that time, I understand you've been in contact with PennDOT. So I would suggest that we just see if we could get some clarification on some of the things that he said as we go forward.
Sure.
I would like to do the same.
Okay.
But any of the comments that he's presented can be validated one way or the other in terms of conclusions. Sounds like I know Carol is doing most of that work for us. It'd be good to have that drafted on that.
Okay. Hugh, would you like to withdraw your motion or change it and table it? It's up to you. 10 o'clock at
And
night.
would anyone mind if we were to table that again?
Table it to May 3rd.
Okay,
please.
let's move through the rest of it. Thank you everyone for sticking around for this very long meeting tonight. All right, we're going to go ahead and table number 11. Do I need to have that voted upon?
Nope.
Okay. Just continue discussion of historic resources inventory in regard to the historic resources ordinance. We've had a chance to see a copy.
And Madam Chairperson, you can probably table this as well. The only thing that I would ask is input from the board on the list of historic resources, and to make sure that you want to, what I understand is that go forward with an ordinance, but really deal with historic, class 1 and class 2 historic resources. If you could look at the list and make sure that you understand which resources we're talking about. And then we can have, I know Hugh's going to attend the historical commission meeting and discuss it with them, and I'll follow up with you after Thursday's next meeting and have something back to you for the future meeting. Okay, and obviously bring Sean involved in the conversation as this.
Okay, so we do need to have a discussion and possible approval of the 2019 line painting bid. Sorry, bid, yes.
Yeah, these are our annual housekeeping item with our shared program with Westtown, East Goshen, Westtown, East Goshen. So that $82,000, $488.50 is a shared cost through the 3 municipalities. It's about a 3% increase from last year. And the sole bidder was Alpha Space Control in Chambersburg, PA. We beat the bushes to get more bidders, and they're the only player out there for long line painting.
Is this our portion, or is that?
That's the total bill. Dave's got it.
Last year, our work was 47,000.
Did you say 37?
47,000 last year.
Our share will be approximately that.
About the same.
Yes.
Might be 48.
We're gonna actually do the parking lot here and all, so every year it varies a little bit.
Because of what's there.
Mhm.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any public comment? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, number 13. Yay, somebody else gets to talk. Lieutenant Carroll, you come right up. Oh, I need to my book is 15, sorry.
Good evening.
Did I overskip?
So the police department report for the month of March, we handled 2,328 calls for service. Of those, 66 were alarms, and all 66 were found to be false alarms. We handled 24 reportable accidents and 58 non-reportable accidents. And all told, the officers drove a total of 23,440 miles. Some of the areas that got special attention for traffic this month were Airport Road, Applegate Drive, Ashbrook Drive, East Stroudsburg Road, North Penn Drive, Route 100, Bailey Pike, Pottstown Pike, and Rosedale Avenue. 13 of our officers attended training this month, and the topics for training included medical, firearms, computer forensics, emergency response team, and DUI enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Ms. Testa, Fire Marshal's report. Thank you. Can I make a quick, can you hear well from here without being at the podium?
So,
Just come here to the podium, just so we can have it
Mike's
for the meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. For the month of March, there were a total of 21 inspections, 8 commercial use and occupancy, 4 fire blocking, 7 sprinkler, 1 framing, 3 fire alarm, 3 residential finals, 1 fire hydrant, 1 walkthrough, 1 firewall, 1 tent, and 1 kitchen hut. There were 4 fire calls, 1 mulch fire, 1 house fire, and 2 appliance fires. I gave 1 fire safety training, attended 2 meetings, and had 1 burn complaint. I attended 4 hours of emergency management training and 24 hours of fire marshal and code enforcement training. And I also have the building officials report.
Oh, thank you.
There were a total of 75 permits for the month, 48 residential and 27 commercial. There were 11 building, 18 electrical, 5 fire protection, 9 HVAC, 9 plumbing, 9 roofing, 2 zoning, 6 use and occupancy, 2 E&S, and 4 road occupancy. The total cost of construction was $11,333,900. $305, or $305,379.81. And the total permit fees were $86,642.30. And I forgot to tell you how many calls the fire departments had. Westchester Fire Department had 17 calls for the month, and Good Fellowship Ambulance had 135 calls. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're up to Board of Supervisors announcements. Anyone want to make an announcement? Chris?
Just real quick from the Parks and Rec Department, on May 4th, we have summer recreation program registration. It will be from 8 to 11 a.m. It's a pretty popular program over the years, our summer camp. So please mark that on your calendars if you've got some youngsters that you want involved in the summer recreation program. And that's all. Oh, and we had a wonderful Easter egg hunt, and we'll call it egg hunt and decorated hat parade. It was another smashing success, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. My only supervisor announcement is that I attended the Goose Creek cleanup. I don't know, maybe you know this. I guess a couple of Saturdays ago, on the 13th. And I wanted to commend the gentleman, primarily gentleman, who attended on behalf of the township, who brought the dump trucks to take the bags, who had the back end, I think they had some back end, whatever they're called. So I wanted to thank John Beswick because he works with these fellows to be available to the people who are cleaning up the creek, collecting all the bags that get collect all the stuff that comes out of the stream. It was a very eye-opening experience for me. I was sort of shocked and disappointed to see how poorly the stream is treated by residents and commercial entities that don't actually travel to see just outside their parking lot where all of their plastic and paper and all sorts of other things are dropped. So I want to acknowledge Mr. Hugh Bryce, Dylan Condrick, Mike Ticknor, and Barry, I need to write that very well.
Very Smith.
Barry Smith, that's what my writing says, exactly, Barry Smith. So for those of you who work with them, would you please share that information? Because I really appreciate it. They were great to work with. Okay, Township Manager.
I have a couple announcements. As we all know, Sunoco, I reported last month, Sunoco has started their HDD drilling on Boot Road, much to our chagrin. They're drilling in both directions towards East Whiteland. I'm sorry, Jesus, it's getting me, sorry. Towards East Goshen and towards West Whiteland. We are monitoring noise, vibration. We have complaints. Mr. Craig's been up there to monitor and check the noise. On April 15th, we had a loss of circulation. I won't use rabbit ears because I hate doing that, but the township was not notified because Sunoco is parsing their words with what they have to notify us on. They claim they only have to notify the township when there is an inadvertent return, meaning the bentonite clay fluid comes up out of the ground and you can see it on the ground. A loss of circulation apparently is when their drilling fluid hits a void underground and their pump. It's an event where the fluid level goes down because it's going into the void instead of staying in the hole or staying in the drill, but they did not notify us. So I've demanded Sunoco notify us for any reason at all, fuel spill, loss of circulation, workplace injury, anything. I did that on I did that on Friday, and I have not received any word back from Sunoco at all. So it's continued, the same Sunoco lack of communication with us. So we will keep on it. Again, it's going to be about a 4-month process, and we will continue to monitor it over the summer. Just a reminder, the May 30th, we've moved the May meeting to May 30th, 7 o'clock for the board meeting. Ms. Covado provided some details. We had a yard waste pickup recently, and was double the amount of last year for some reason, which is a good thing. It gets diverted from our landfill directly. The e-waste and shred event, we had 1,000 cars show up for that, and lots of compliments on the organization of the event. It's always well run. Ms. Covada went to Westtown Thornberry School and provided a recycling lesson to the 5 and 6 year olds. They brought a recycling truck, taught them some common sense measures on please stay away from the trucks during operations, and how to recycle correctly, which is always good. And she received a nice email thanking them from the school. Last thing, Ms. Covada and our staff are also putting out notices on toters and on recycling and trash toters for incorrect uses of the trash toters. If they're putting garbage in their recycling, etc., we have cute stickers that we put on the toters now, just to give them a heads up that you need to recycle or use our trash toters in the correct fashion. So that's it.
Executive session.
Yes, we have an executive session tonight to discuss potential litigation. Thank you. Yeah.
Casey, just a
Yes, sir.
follow-up about what we were talking about for the May 23rd volunteers. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're still planning on it. The board has decided to resurrect the board and commission appreciation dinner. So we're planning on that as soon as possible.
Okay, next item. I'm sorry, yes, yes. Oh, yes, of course, come on up, public comment. Response.
Joan Herman, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Vaughn, for staying up on Sunoco and going out there and checking what's going on. I drive by there and I could cry at what I see that's been going on. And actually, when you mentioned this bentonite clay, the mixture that they're making, it also creates a cloud. And I saw it, and I reported it to the DEP, and he called me back and said he would come out, probably slap them on the hand. But if anyone sees things like that, they should report it. It did happen again the other day. It looks like when they were mixing it, it made this huge, but I only saw it on video, so I couldn't report it because I didn't see it.
Right.
However, thank you for staying on them because they need to be watched, as everyone knows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just clarification from Mr. Lalonde. You, have they reported how much loss they had?
They won't tell us.
Have you?
The only thing they're supposed to tell us is injured returns, which did not happen. So I'm trying to force them to give us as much information, but and I can't get blood from a stone. So
Well, that's one heck of a stone. Has there been any effort to reach out to the DEP to find out from them just how much was reported lost?
No. Not
Because that's concerning if they're not telling us how much material is lost underground. We do sit on that area on a little bit of a karst formation under there, which could also have...
There's no karst there.
There's no karst in the township.
There's no karst in the township at all.
Okay. We need to get that information to find out exactly how much material may be under there, because if this was reported on the 15th, is
It
what the
occurred on the
letter said.
15th.
That's not true, because the week prior, myself, because I live there, I see these people out there walking up and down the line, and many of my friends drive up and down there. They witnessed on Wednesday and Thursday Sunoco personnel walking up and down Boot Road looking for something. So this occurred before the 15th. So that's concerning to me.
Well, that was the information in the letter that you provided to us. So we have no information. Sunoco has not discussed this at all with us.
Well, right, but that occurred, the 15th was a Monday. I'm talking about the previous week, Wednesday.
I understand that, but they will not give us any information.
Right. Well,
so we have nothing more to go on.
The DEP is the next logical place to go to for that information.
I agree.
So I'm trying, they still haven't returned my calls.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to township engineer's announcements.
Regarding stormwater, I attended 5 stormwater sessions last week at PSATs. 3 of them done by DEP. They still have no time frame for completion of the issuance of permits that should have been issued a year ago. They claim that 60% of the permits have been issued, but only 3 have been issued in Chester County, which is not even close to 60%. And they will provide no time frame for when we expect to get our permit. So, what should we do about nothing? Regarding Greystone, the emphasis right now is on constructing the collector road between Phoenixville Pike and Aram Avenue. Much of the stoning, subgrade and stonework has been done. They're prepared to do curb at this point. And they're going to start work on the first dam middle to end of May.
Thank you. Zoning officer, Mr. Redd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to the zoning hearing board, on April 10th, they held 2 hearings here. One was for the Chester County Hospital for 701 East Marshall Street. The zoning hearing board did approve the hospital's request to add 3 additional wall signs to the facility. They also heard an application from Sioka Chevrolet at 715 Alder Park Boulevard. The zoning hearing board also approved 2 wall signs for them, and they also approved the 75 square foot freestanding sign. The zoning hearing board will be back in action here again on May 2nd for the application for 840 Spruce Avenue. This applicant lives next to the Roslyn Swim Club and is seeking a variance to install an 8-foot high fence along the side yard setback. Our zoning ordinance only allows for a 6-foot high fence in a residential zoning district. So I would need to know if the board would like to take a position on that application. In my opinion, it's probably a good idea for the resident to not have to. Fast forward, Rosalind had purchased a piece of ground from Natural Lands Trust, the swim club, and they've been in to speak to us. They're probably going to be in the near future to do a reverse subdivision, combine the 2 parcels together, and put a parking lot right next to this gentleman's property. So he's trying to fast forward and put his fence up before they put their parking lot in. So he's kind of being proactive. So I would need to know whether the board would like to take a position on this application.
That's on the 8-foot fence.
That is on the 8-foot fence.
Instead of 6.
In commercial zoning districts, we allow people in commercial zoning districts.
The separation is going to be from the swim club to his personal new parking.
Correct. Yeah, and it's going to be a new parking lot next to his house.
Yeah, bordering right on his yours now.
Yeah. I don't think we should step into it.
No. Very good.
Chris, you got any? I said I agree. I don't think we should step into it.
The next application that we will have, the hearing will either take place in May or June. I have to convene with the ZHB on the 2nd for them to decide whether they want to have a second hearing in May or if they want to wait until June to hear this application. And that is for 1035 Saunders Lane. That applicant has severely reduced what they were initially asking for relief. They met, their attorney met with myself, Mr. Craig, and Mr. Lalonde. The applicant was initially seeking to put up a 14-foot high retaining wall in the front yard of the property. We only allow 4 foot. After they did their calculations and they went back and reduced the size of the proposed building that will be coming in for land development, they have found that a portion of that wall can be reduced to 7 foot at its highest in the front yard. So they're really only asking for a 3-foot variance, and it's not for the entire portion of the front yard. It's 140 feet that they would be seeking that. So in our opinion, we would not oppose that application, but we would go to you guys and see if you'd like to take a position on that application. This property is almost across the street from the Woodlands. The applicant did note the walls that are already on the Woodlands property.
I must have
What is the purpose of this wall?
So they're going to be coming in for subdivision, and, or not, they're on land development, and they're going to be constructing a second building on the property. The
Walls to the parking lot.
Okay.
So do your zoning requirements on height of walls apply to retaining walls?
Yes.
So did Durakian have?
Only retaining walls in the front yard.
Oh, okay. That's what I was confused
Durakians
about. Got it.
have a lot, 85 walls, but none of them are in the front yard.
Okay, that's what I was confused about. I don't want to take a position on that.
Thank you. Just one other thing, while I was at PSATS, the PASO, which is the Pennsylvania Association of Zoning Officials, we had our conference on Sunday. That was one of the best educational seminars I've ever been to in my years of doing this. So my hat's off to PSATS for putting that on, and my hat's off to the board for allowing me to attend. Thank you.
Okay. Item 19 is the approval of Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of the March 19, 2019. Okay, do I have a second? Any public comment? Margie, please come forward.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth paragraph on page 1. Ms. Camp, or says she stated that Margie Swartz's request for party status is denied. That's perfect. However, if you're going to name who was denied, in about the same breath, Ms. Camp also noted and named the parties that were granted party status. So I think those names and that information should be included in the minutes. And then also Margie Swart questioned the case law. Actually, I stated the case law, denying her request for party status has been reversed. I didn't question anything about it. I had stated that the case law had been reversed. A little unclear, you said that she stated that the applicant hasn't provided a trash receptacle. I did mention that the plans do not reflect an enclosed trash receptacle as required by the zoning ordinance. And I said that because that's part of the zoning ordinance, and I do believe that needs to be put in the minutes. And then we morphed into a discussion about whether or not that property needed land development. There was only one vote taken on this application for the medicinal marijuana spot, but it's written in the minutes that there were actually 2 separate votes taken. And it did get kind of confusing, but I did go back and look at the video. So again, the minutes reflect that there were 2 separate votes taken, one for the approval of the application and then a separate one approving that land development would be waived. And there weren't 2 separate votes taken. And then I know Dr. Doug White specifically asked about the accidents reports, whether they were going to be destroyed. And because he asked that question specifically about accident reports, I think it needs to be included in there that Ms. Lesota did confirm that the fatality accidents will not be destroyed. I would just hate to see that one day those reports might be destroyed and you go back and you look at the minutes and it says the board approved accident reports to be destroyed. I think it needs that specific information was questioned, and I think it should be reflected in the minutes. And then also...
Margie, I'm going to only be able to give you 1 minute. So
okay, that's fine.
Choose wisely which one you want to do.
Sure. Mr. Lalonde introduced the Finance Department's utility billing cash receipts. The last sentence on that page, it said that I stated that all employees should be bonded, and my statement was that all employees who handle cash should be bonded. I did not request that all employees be bonded, so that's inaccurate. And then also the Greystone residential subdivision on the revised escrow agreement, I think it should be in there what the revised agreement was for, the actual amount. That's important, and what it was for. And then the next paragraph, he says, I stated that financials are due on April 1st. I did not say April 1st. I said they were due 120 days after the first of the year, which was April 30th. So that April 1st is incorrect. Anyway, again, this is just an ongoing story. It's bad policy to have the township manager also be the minute taker and also be the clock starter, and it's just so much control. It's honestly annoying when he's over there pointing us, can we not have Mr. Craig or Mr. Webb or the assistant manager, Mr. Davis, point the clicker. So anyway, there's a few. I would hope the board finally changes this policy. I don't want to come up here every month.
He's our secretary for the township, and so he is tasked with that responsibility. But what I think would be even more helpful and more beneficial to you is that when you get this draft, to actually send your comments in real time. Because this information, as we've said before, is meant to capture in general the topic. Quite frankly, he's still writing things in almost, what you said, how you said it, was it stated, was it requested. If you know there are mistakes, those mistakes should be brought to his attention as soon as you recognize them.
I'd be happy to do that, and I did have that thought because it is.
And I think this, whether it's human error or whether it's simply just not taking every word verbatim or interpreting what you said differently than what you meant it to say, it would be beneficial for you to be able to clarify that.
Well, it would be beneficial for the township to have accurate minutes. This is, it's fraud. It's
not fraud.
It's fraud. It is fraud. So thank you.
Margie, if that was the case, I have to strongly disagree with you on that. I've mentioned this a couple of times.
Can you
we're
turn your microphone?
We're on tape.
There's no fraud. We're on tape. So these mistakes that Casey's making, he's just human. I don't think there's any bad intent here. There's some things you mentioned where he left something out. But we've taken the initiative several years ago to put us on tape so that if something is missing, you can go back to the tapes. It's there. So there's nothing nefarious here. Nobody's trying to hide anything here. And every month you come here, you have a right to do that, and you point out the discrepancies. But I have to concur with Madam Chair that it might be best if you do it beforehand and give it to Casey, and we can revise it. But to say that it's fraud, that's just unfair. That's unfair.
I don't think so. I mean, you're portraying me. You're portraying me in negative and inaccurate light. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to.
You still need to vote on that.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the. Sorry, I just lost all my paperwork here. We have a motion on the table for. I'm not going to. You can make a public comment at the end of the meeting, please.
No, this is you are finalizing the minutes, and
Yes.
I have a right to make a comment. I have a correction on that thing. Are you denying me that due process?
You have a correction to be made?
Absolutely.
Could you send those to Mr. Llewellyn?
No, I want to make a public comment. This is a public meeting. I have the right to make a public comment. You deny me due process
Mr.
of the law.
Ramari, come to the podium and make it quick.
Abbas Rabari. Ma'am, I have a right to make the public comment. Mr. Pial, with all due respect, I disagree with your assertion. Whenever you enter to any agreement or any kind of a situation, you enter with the unclean hand. That's fraud. This is happening time after time after time. This is fraud by any stretch of imagination. If you did it in a courtroom, excuse me, I'm not done, I have the floor. On March 19, 2019, page 3, Mr. Abbas Rebari thanked Mr. Stonback for amending the minutes of the meeting. That's incorrect. I didn't thank you. I thanked you to have the courage to correct your mistake. You made a mistake. You said YouTube is a part of the minutes. It's not. And you acknowledge that. You correct it. So we want that. I want that to be correctly reflected on the minutes. I have the chain of custody of this tape. I always maintain it. If you want to refresh your memory, it's here. What do I have to do to educate this board? You're continuously making the same mistake over and over. You say it's not fraud. It is a fraud. When you are doing something, you depriving the public under the color of law, that's fraud and subject to action of 1983. Now, I brought it to your attention, Section 704, all open meetings shall be conducted openly. But you guys were huddling. I brought that to your attention, but it was not noted.
Mr. Rebari, I do not take verbatim minutes.
You don't have to take verbatim.
But you and Ms. Ward are asking for me to take verbatim minutes, not a transcript.
Correct minute, not verbatim. Go refresh your memory.
You both asked for verbatim minutes to be taken.
It's not verbatim. If I said you made a mistake, you made a mistake.
Mr. Rebari, make your point and then.
I am making a point.
Okay.
I still have one more minute. I have every right as everybody else. I'm not.
In attacking members of our.
I'm not attacking anybody.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're calling this fraud.
It is a fraud.
It is not a fraud.
It
It
is.
may be your definition, but it's not a definition in a legal term. Finish your point, please, and then move on.
It is my opinion. If you disagree with me, if you think I'm slandering you, sue me. Then I have a right to
I
do
just would like
that.
to educate you that this is not fraud.
I'm here to educate you with respect to
Making a
minutes.
mistake is not fraud.
Ma'am, you made a mistake. I corrected you. This isn't a public forum, and I corrected you. Okay, what do I have to do to educate you? You have to buy this book. I bought this book.
I read that.
I was
Cover to
educated.
cover after you pointed out.
I was educated by the best. Ron Nagel, Jeff Sommer, and these individuals taught me. I sat on the meeting. I learned from them. But in this township, everything's backward. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, and we now need to vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Motion, are you amending them or not? What was the motion?
The motion was to adopt the minutes.
With no amendment? With no amendment?
I don't believe that anyone raised the option to do so.
How many people approved it?
It's 5-0.
5-0.
There were only 2 people here two supervisors were here
Ms.
last
Swarn,
time.
anybody can vote on the minutes if they weren't even attending at the meeting. Ms. Camp, is that correct?
Yeah, I actually read that.
Mr. Walsh can approve the minutes. He's a member of the board.
Okay, the next item is approval of the treasurer's report dated February 28th, 2019 for the general fund, the sewer revenue fund, the waste and recycling fund, and the capital reserve fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds.
And I'll second it.
Treasurer's report and bills to be paid.
Any questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Come on up.
I respectfully request that the board not approve the invoices for the FOP dues for the officers that are listed in the treasurer's report.
Those FOP dues are professional dues that are paid for Mr. Lieutenant Carroll, Lieutenant Dominio, Captain Stone, and the Chief of Police. They're membership dues like any other dues. They are not union dues. They are professional organization dues. So I strongly suggest you pay the invoice.
It's my understanding that the dues amounts are withheld from their paychecks
For the union
on their
members.
behalf because they make a decision to pay those dues, and the township can process them by removing them from their paycheck.
Correct.
And then what is the next step after that?
We have 2 sets of those types of dues. We have the union dues that go to the association itself for West Goshen Township. Those are paid for all by the union members, police union members, out of their own paychecks by deferral. Those separate dues that you're paying for, or you're suggesting, are professional organization dues, just like any other organization that all of us belong to. PASO, ICMA, they're professional dues.
Well, the FOP says that the subordinate lodge is what Chester County FOP lodge is of the national organization. And they can either be trade unions and or fraternal organizations. But either way, these, whether it's a union, trade union, or a fraternal organization, they make political endorsements. And so the FOP lodge comes out and makes political endorsements. And I don't think taxpayer funds should be used for an organization that makes political endorsements that the board members may not agree with, or the taxpayers that are paying these dues.
But remember, what I'm saying is that this is the police officers' money. This is their salary.
No. This is the taxpayer.
That's correct. These are dues,
Okay.
membership dues paid for by the township.
Okay.
This is bills that you're
But Ms.
approving.
Ford, then we have to not give to PSATs
Got
and
it.
everything else.
Okay.
Do they endorse for presidential candidates, PSATs? I mean, do you know who the FOP endorsed last presidential candidate?
No, I do not.
I don't think the majority of this board would like who the FOP endorsed for presidential candidates. And our taxpayer, the dollars, that's what you're approving tonight. So I ask that you not approve that $1,300 or $329 for those, for officers for those dues. And then one other one, there was a legal bill in there for SWORT petition, and I'm just curious what that invoice was for.
The petition that
The
you
petition that you filed against the
Right,
township.
well, apparently it was closed sometime last
We
year.
had to communicate that to you, that it was closed, because you contacted our solicitor to talk.
No.
We received a notice from the court that it has not been,
Right.
it was not,
It was not closed.
although the action was entered to dismiss your amended complaint,
Mhm.
until you file a press to settle, discontinue, and end, it's still an active case, and we received notice from the court about that. So we had to inquire with the court what the status of the case was, and then corresponded with you about it.
Right, but only the plaintiff can file the precipice to withdraw, and I never filed
And
that.
that's why it's still on the court docket. That's exactly why it's still on the court docket, and you received notice of the trial listing as well as we did.
Right, I understand though, I talked to the court administration building, or the administrator, and she said someone went to the prothonotony's office and asked the prothonotony's office to mark it closed without receiving a precipice to withdraw.
We wouldn't have done that. We can't mark this case closed without the plaintiff.
Okay, thank you. I just asked that you not pay those 4 invoices. Thank you.
All right, so I'm sorry, excuse me. We have a motion. One motion and a second. Thank you, I'm getting tired. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Sinclair, about the treasurer's report. Yeah.
About the treasurer's report. Actually, it's to address her question. It's my understanding, and Ms. Kemp can tell me this or not, but I believe nonprofits are not allowed to make campaign donations. Is that true? Nonprofits are barred from.
I don't know the answer to that question. And
I'm
I'm not sure
pretty
how that's
sure-
relevant. This is not a nonprofit organization. This is,
Pardon me?
I'm not sure how that's relevant to the issue.
It's regarding the issue of the FOP. Is the FOP a nonprofit organization? Because it's our nonprofit organization. Pardon me? Fraternal Order of Police. I understand that. Well, the question actually, my question is this: is that I just was trying to draw that one point out. In regards to, you don't need to hit the 3. I'm not going to be here for 3 minutes. I'll wait for you.
I turned it off.
Okay.
It's 10:30 at night, Mrs. Sinclair.
I just have a quick question. Okay.
Go for it.
The organizations that the money is being paid for, is that just the FOP or is there a list of organizations? I'm just curious.
It's their membership to the Chester County.
That's the only one then?
Correct.
Oh, good. That's no. Thank you.
Okay.
No, just curious.
All right, anyone else, public comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
No, what?
I thought you were asking for public comment, sorry.
No, hearing none. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. All right, yep, now public comment. Mr. Casey, Judge Pendergast.
As brief as I can. I sent the board an email, response back, and there was 3 issues on the website under the Sunoco heading.
And I've removed them from the website.
Well, not to, I didn't want to remove them, I need clarification.
I removed them. That information was, I don't even know when I set that up, 4 years ago. It was dated, and I refreshed it, so there it is.
So this is resolved?
Yes, I took it off.
Thank you.
As soon as you emailed. Thank you. Sorry.
That's Mr. Blaschik.
Bob Rochett, Warren Road. Last summer, Mr. Paoli made a statement that he felt his primary duty was to do what was best for West Goshen Township. At a later meeting, when I continued to complain about the snow throw back onto my walkway and explain why this was happening, he said, "My people are telling me something different." Mr. Paoli, let me remind you that your people are your constituents, not township officials that have allowed a practice that endangers the public welfare for 11 years and allowed violation of township policy that required roads to be cleared curb to curb take place. At a later meeting, Madam Chair also stated that she was told something different than what I had again repeated about why the snow was being thrown onto my walkway. On March 9th, 2018, I had a communication with now Madam Chair that I saved. In that communication, you stated that once the plow hits the snow, the driver cannot control the snow throwback. I sent you a site that clearly stated the speed of the vehicle determines how far snow will be tossed. You also said that you were told that if the drivers throw clumps of ice and snow into my walkway, I would not be fined. So if I don't clear my walkway in a specified time, I would be fined. But if the drivers throw clumps of ice and snow onto my walkway, don't worry about it. Now, in both statements by Mr. Paoli and Madam Chair, they were vague and not specific about what they were being told. Also, Mr. Woodward has been at every meeting back to last June when I started complaining about the snow throwback. He has been totally silent. If my claims are inaccurate, please give me a reasonable explanation as to why they are inaccurate. I also sent Madam Chair videos that corroborate the claims I have been making since last June. I assure you I have many other pictures and videos that would further corroborate my claims. Why aren't township officials that have allowed a practice that endangered the public welfare and allowed a violation of township policy regarding curb-to-curb clearing of the roads not being held accountable? There are other options available to me outside this building, and that I believe some officials should be charged with reckless endangerment. Thank you.
Mr. Blaschik, did you talk about the meeting that we had in February?
Meeting?
You were at the phone call. I called you the
Yeah,
next
you
day
called
when
me.
we had our next big snow. Do you
Yeah.
remember that conversation? I called you during the day saying
Yes.
that Mr. Bartolome and I would like to come to your home
Absolutely.
and observe what was happening with respect to
And what
the
did I tell
snow.
you?
You told me no.
No, I said,
Okay, well,
they
let me
know how to
finish.
handle it.
Let me finish what I'm going to say. We had almost a 40-minute phone call where I asked you about your concerns, whether or not you would be willing to have us come and visit with you, to talk to you about the process. You just made a statement about wanting to know, if your information is inaccurate, I'd like to hear what the answer is. But when I asked you that question at the end of our conversation, I asked you if we could come and you said no. And I said, fine, that's fine with me. And you also stated that if you can find a reasonable and rational explanation for why this is happening, I'm all ears. But I doubt that's going to happen. And you asked me not to come. So why I'm bringing this up to you is that it's my understanding that multiple people in the township have tried to inform you of why this happens, okay? You seem to think that it's just for you, that you're being persecuted somehow because of the way that they've been dropping snow incorrectly. But Mr. Bartolome had also mentioned to you, which I also understand you rejected, that he would come to your home and see what's going on at your property during a snowstorm. And that day was the day that I was going to come because I live very close to you. Mr. Pielli was going to also try to participate in observing exactly what you're showing us. I've seen every one of your videos. I've listened to your audio. I've tried to communicate with you one-on-one the day of a snowstorm, and you rejected it. So as much as I understand your frustration and your concern about why this is still happening for you, I really want to ask you to, next time you have an opportunity, we have an opportunity to do so, to allow us to sit down with you and tell you the facts of how these problems occur. And if you're not going to trust the people, Mr. Woodward and his township staff, they are very concerned about your displeasure with them. And that's why Mr. Bartolome wanted to come out and meet with you that day. So I want you to consider, if you are willing to listen, to be able to sit down with these folks so they can explain it to you. Because if you still don't understand it, it means we haven't done a good enough job informing you.
I sent you the site that stated that the speed of the vehicles determines how much snow is going to be thrown back. That was a statement that was made, and for 30 years, and I stated this at different meetings, starting in June, 30 years there was never once an incident with snow throwback. However, on February 14, 2007, when there was a sleet storm and there was snow throwback, and I called and complained, and Mr. Halverson, and I repeated this several times at these meetings, said, and it may happen again with that tone. And it's happened for 11 straight years since then, and it's not a coincidence. And when you called me, I didn't say no. I said there's no need to because they know what they have to do. And guess what? Those two snowstorms after, there was no snow throwback. So they apparently had the driver slow down to where they weren't throwing snow back. It's a simple thing. If you go down the shore and they have leave no wake, if the boat goes slow, there's going to be very little wake. If the boat goes fast, it's going to throw a lot of water back. And the same principle applies to snow throwing. And like I said, I did not say no. I said there was no need to come because they knew what to do, and they have done it. And I'd like a reasonable explanation for why it didn't happen for 30 years, but once I complained to Halverson, that it happened the next 11 years. And since 2012, I filed 3 police reports. I attended...
We did not time you, but you've already reached your 3. We really need to go.
Well, you were the one to start talking to me.
Well,
I'm just answering your question.
I understand. But my point in sharing this with you is that the township has repeatedly offered you an opportunity to come and meet, or alternatively, we made an effort to go to meet you at your home so we could see it.
They had opportunities.
I appreciate your concern and frustration, but we as a board now have no authority over what was said to you for understanding, or we have real connection in terms of what you're claiming they said to you. And the fact that Mr. Halverson is no longer a supervisor, we can't be held accountable for what he said to you. It's what you're telling us he said. But that's not how the township is operating.
I filed 3 police reports since 2012. I attended 3 township meetings in 2014, repeating these same things, and got nowhere with anybody. If there was a concern about it, it should have been taking place years ago. So there was no concern, no comment, no anything.
Mr. Brochure, did you just say the last 3 times that they you don't have any issues with
the last 2?
Last 2.
Because that was after I spoke with you.
Okay, so
because they slowed down, which they should have been doing for 11 years.
Great. So why are you complaining?
Why am I complaining? Because township officials endangered the public welfare for 11 years, and the curb-to-curb policy statement is ridiculous because I sent a series of videos to Madam Chair and showed for a period of almost a month where those drains weren't open because they did not do that. That means the township officials were not doing their job. And if that doesn't concern you, then there's something wrong with this board.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Yes.
Mr. White, Doc White?
I'd just like to welcome Sean. Welcome, you'll do great. Also, thank you, Mary Lasota, for her service. And also thank you, Bill Webb, for helping me with the residents' issue with the noise. Thank you very much.
Yes. You have 1 minute.
Abbas Raberi, a couple meetings ago, your solicitor was holding a private meeting in an open public format, which is in a violation of Sunshine Act Section 704. And I brought it to the attention of the board, and there hasn't been any correction on the minutes. although Mr. Piali was not privy to that consultation, and I videotaped the whole thing. And again, I highly recommend review Ackerman versus Upper Mount Bethel Township 567. In this four corner of this room, anything takes place has to take place in a public format, open discussion. If you want to go to executive session, you close the meeting, you go to the executive session, you come back, open the meeting, announce you went to the executive session, you can have all the consultation you want. All I'm asking this to be done legally. Now, there are members of the public who may not know this, but if somebody picks it up, it brings it to your attention, you should be complimentary, say, thank you, Mr. Ray, to bring it to our attention, as opposed to attack me. So this is the core issue here is, when somebody comes and criticizes this board, you guys, excuse the expression, get your back out. And you don't want to take a note on that. I don't want to come here and say, Madam Celeste, let me educate you in law. That would be, it would be fighting words. I don't want to do that. I want to come here, say something so we can correct this issue. By the way, I'm not going to go away. Violate my civil right, you will find yourself in a court. I can assure you of that. I am not afraid of anybody. And I know my legal rights forward, backward, up and down. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the meeting is called for closing.
No.
I'm just curious, what is the cash receipt policy for the township? I know we passed a new ordinance last month regarding cash receipts.
It was a policy, it wasn't an ordinance.
Okay, policy.
It's a big difference for sure.
Pardon me. Okay, what is the policy regarding cash receipts when someone comes into the township and pays their bills in cash or pays?
I don't understand your question.
I came into the township and picked up an open records request.
Correct.
Okay. I paid $43.50. What is the township's policy regarding what does a township employee do when somebody hands them cash?
They put it in the cash drawer, and it is accounted for at the end of the day and put in for deposit.
How do you know that your employee took cash from a resident?
Primarily because they have already set up a policy that has a segregation of the duties associated with that transfer of cash from the moment that the township resident drops it off at either the utility or the other person who can take it. I met with the auditors briefly to learn more about their audit for this year, how things were going. I did that last year as well. I was curious to ask questions about their observations of any concerns they've had about the policies and procedures that are already in place. Jean Denham is pretty diligent in keeping current with what the standards of care are for those types of things. The amount of cash that comes through, I forget the number she gave me, which I can bring to next month's meeting. It's a very small amount. But I spoke directly to the auditors. I'm actually going to request that the auditors come and make a presentation to the township so that they can hear it firsthand about the processes that they analyze annually or every other year, and will also speak to their concerns about fraud. They feel very strongly that the internal controls that are in place right now are highly effective. And what they've also told me is that if there's been any theft, it's usually been of equipment, paper towels and toilet tissue, if I recall correctly from what Jean told me. So, and again, Jean is the right person to ask that question of directly.
No, but you're getting even deeper than I meant to tonight. It's very simple. The first thing an employee should do when somebody hands them cash is to give them a receipt. Sometimes I get a receipt, and sometimes I don't. It depends who's behind that desk. I'm asking the board to direct their staff to account for this $43.50. I was not offered a receipt.
Why didn't you ask for it?
Shouldn't ask it.
No, but well, he's a little nervous. If we don't have...
Ms. Swart, stop.
Please don't interrupt me.
Ms. Swart, you're in your fifth minute, you can stop.
How you say you get very little cash? If you're not handing out receipts...
I did not say that.
Ms. Stumpbeck said the township receives very little cash. Maybe the township receives a lot more cash than you know about, because
Ms. Swart, are you accusing our staff of stealing money?
No,
yes, you did. You did.
Yeah, there's no financial oversight or control when people come in and hand employees cash and they're not given a receipt. That's an internal control lapse. That's a problem. I've been asking for a forensic audit now for 4 years. This is why. There's a black hole right here in West Goshen Township. And I'd like to know who reconciles the bank statements. Whose responsibility is that?
The treasurer and the assistant treasurer and 2 staff accountants. We have 4 sets of eyes going over the books every month, plus the auditors on an annual basis.
Do the
We're on the minute 7.
elected officials have an opportunity to see what's behind these black redactions? Okay.
We trust the people who we employ.
And every time somebody is found to be taking money, everybody says, we trusted that person, we trusted that person.
When was the last time that happened?
I think if you go back and you look to the forensic audit, I think if you look at the forensic audit from 2007 from another township, it talks about cash receipts. They must be numbered. And would someone get back to me and show me the $43.50, was it deposited in a bank account on whatever day I picked up my right to know request? Friday, Good Friday.
Is that what you were looking for in that TD Bank statement? To see that it was...
Oh, no.
Oh,
That's,
okay.
no.
I can understand why that was your...
But cash receipts numbers, very important. Look at any financial audit. Thank you.
Ask for a receipt the next time.
I need a motion to close the evening. It's time.
I'll make a motion to close.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.